Now, Kevin, you have met them both in your time as a showbiz journalist. What do you make of them?
Well,
what are they like?
I would say actually, I met Justin Bieber at the beginning of his career, and he was a very polite, very accommodating young man who obviously was just about to be propelled into a world of international fame, something that I'm sure the majority of us will never, ever be able to relate to or fathom what that experience is like. Here's a man growing up in public, and Liam Payne is a very switched on, charming young man from a fine family background. Those who've seen the 1D movie will know that he's come from that background. And of course, he has issued this statement and issued these tweets today regretting his hijinks and risking his own life and by standing on a ledge. So it was a bit irresponsible, but he has apologised for that.
Okay, Linda, what do you make of their behaviour?
Do you know, on first glance, you kind of look at it and you think some of it's sort of different to what sort of young people, teens do, but some of it is actually what, you know, the risk-taking behaviour, the impulsivity of I'm going to do something and take a picture and show people right away is probably something that rings true of the vast majority of teens out there. The difference is this, is that when you become famous, especially at that level of celebrity, all of those barriers to kind of decision-making, to figuring out, am I going to do this, is it right or wrong, tend to go. You're surrounded by people that tell you you're great, that every decision you're making is probably the right one. You add on the technology that enables you to document every awful decision that you make, and then you also are thrust into this role of role model. Not that you ask for it, but very sadly, the only role models we seem to have for our kids are famous dancers, singers, and you know, musicians. And as a consequence, you find yourself in these situations. And I think the reaction, Liam's reaction, you know, was probably appropriate. He was like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize, you know, it was a stunt. I would have done this with friends. Justin Bieber is a kid who probably, like, you know, you said, has never kind of experienced, and no one knows what it feels like to get that level of yesism around them. So that will affect him.
And maybe he feels a bit superhuman now, Kevin, and maybe the showbiz world is partly to blame for that because everyone's telling him he's brilliant every 5 minutes.
Yeah, there is an element of that, and of course I agree with Linda, the fact that we are dealing with 19, 20-year-olds who are growing up in public and growing up as well with the world of social media. I mean, the child stars of the 30s, 40s, 50s Hollywood glam era didn't have this, didn't have newspaper columns and websites around the world who, of course, want negative news story. That's what sells, let's be honest, that's what we'll report on. But they are growing up in public, and I think that will take some adjustment. But there are a lot of handlers around these talent who could do with saying no a bit more often.
Yeah, and the money as well. I mean, look at the aerial shots of Justin Bieber's house is extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, but there's no one potentially around to say no. So how would you manage him, Linda?
Well, not only that, I think because we live in such a materialistic society, money has become a moral justification for everything. We also think that we're really clever if we've made lots of money. So what I would say as his brother is that you've been really lucky. Actually, there's people out there that are probably, you know, just as talented, if not more, that, you know, have worked, you know, probably so much harder, that don't have this. So the idea of needing A, to ground them, but B, something about earning what you get. And there's this disparity between what I put in and what I get out in the world of celebrity, which, you know, gives people this sense of grandeur, these delusional sense, especially young people that don't have, you know, those
And just briefly, Kevin, what's going to happen to Justin Bieber, do you think? Because you've seen him from the beginning. How's it going to finish?
Well, he's a man that's still selling records. He still has millions of fans around the world who are downloading his records. He just released an album at Christmas. I mean, it'll be interesting to see where he is in 10 years' time, but I think ultimately he is a talented guy. He's an incredibly clever musician, and I think he will have a long-term career. But right now, he's growing up in public and making far too many mistakes, but he's young.